Hey Nrail fans, my name is Ali Shariari. I have been in N-Track for about 20 years now, into T-Track for only 2 years. This is my home layout. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. You'll see it's a combination of T-Track as well as some shelf layout design, and you'll see why in a minute what obstruction I had to go around to make this layout possible. So I'll start my layout tour here. This is the door you would come in when you enter the room, and you can see my selection of T-Track modules in various stages of completion. As we pan the room, you start to see the obstruction that I had to get around. This is called the train room. If you ever hear my wife call it the spare bedroom, please correct her. This is the train room. So after we pass the laundry room door, the layout converts to a shelf layout design, 3/4 inch plywood with 2-inch foam on top. And it's just a simple shelf design, 6 inches wide, giving me some tracks to get around the room. There's the door we just came in, and back to the layout. So starting here, this is one of my favorite module corners. It's actually an outside corner with a fall scene. I really like the maze in the back. A river scene. This was done by Dave Halloran, who passed away a year ago, and I was fortunate enough to get this module. And next is a back to front module. So what I wanted to do, and if I zoom back a little bit, I wanted to be able to use my outside corners as inside corners. So I constructed these front to back modules to allow me to kind of wrap around and now bring the tracks up front like us T-Trackers are used to. This was my first scene here, a grain elevator scene. Still really happy with it. I learned a lot of lessons on this module, and I'll just leave it at that. Here's another scene, a Lego scene. We got these Lego architecture structures, and my son and I are currently making a street scene, and you can kind of see it in progress with the different types of Legos. Because this room is not T-Track compliant, there was going to be areas in the room that, a full module would not fit. So I had to build this module here. This is a custom module, and in this orientation, it only works on my layout. So this fills the gap to kind of get my layout kind of going around the room. But I designed it with a crossover, and in this orientation, this depth here is a single module depth. So when this is scenic, when it's ready to go, I can take this module in this orientation and use it as a show. When I come home, I use it in this orientation to fill the layout. Next, a true inside corner. And another custom module that I have to use because, of course, again, this room is not T-Track compliant. This is a nice time to showcase what I did, is I used the sliding track joiners. Now, I know it's cheating in T-Track, but what this does is this allows me to slide back these parts, easily pop the module out, and you can see there's a gap here. That's just going to happen in T-Track sometimes. And then what it does is it opens up the rest of the layout for me to pop apart and take to a train show. Another future module, a double. Here's a double here that I did. This is a War of the Worlds scene. And, sometimes when you have an idea, you don't know how it's going to turn out. And this turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. I couldn't believe that I actually did something well. This module, again, this next module is a module of a fire training facility. And this module was built by David Halloran, again, a true pioneer in T-Track here in St. Louis. But he is a retired fire chief, and I am currently a fire captain. And, upon his passing, he passed away a year ago, like I said, his family wanted me to have this module. And I am happy to have it. And anyone who's in the fire service can look at this fire scene and know that Dave knew about firefighting, just the way things are laid out. We can tell he was a fireman. The next are 2 triples. These will be a future intermodal yard. And now a double crossover module that I built. This is a nice time to showcase kind of the things I had to think through when I was designing this layout. So, of course, in T-Track, we know that there's varying depths, and most of my modules are in the 14-inch range. It's just the size that I prefer to do my modeling. But I did this one that was about 8 inches wide. Well, knowing that there's going to be shallower modules, I didn't want the viewer to get preoccupied with this space here, to really notice it. So what I did was, first of all, to back up, everyone in our club has agreed that we paint our front fascia black. We just agreed to do it. It's our club thing. What I did was I painted all of the 3/4 inch plywood underneath black, and then black up to the horizon line of the modules. So when someone sees the layout, they're going to look at it and see the gap there. There's no hiding it, right? But their eye is not drawn to it. I've artfully tried to get rid of that look. And now another, what is now a front to back module to bring us around. And this here is a scene from, well, I'll back up and say that when I was little, we used to go camping at a campground, and it was right on the BN, and we would watch trains and camp, and it was just wonderful to do. One of the features that I like about this module is the searchlight signals. So along the BN, they had searchlight signals, and I wanted signaling for my layout, but nothing really extensive like the things that are out there where things are interconnected. I just wanted intermediate signals. So using an Arduino and some IR sensors, I created a signaling logic. Actually, I had a lot of help from a friend who helped me kind of write the programming, but when a train hits that signal, that sensor, the signal will go red. After a time, it goes amber and then back to green. If the train stays on that sensor, the signal stays red until it's cleared out. Really neat feature. I have a bunch more signals and Arduinos, but as you can tell, a lot of these modules still need scenic and done up. But we're on our way. Haven't decided what to do with this bridge yet, but this gets us around the laundry room door and into this tunnel. This tunnel really is built for to take some abuse. It's right behind the bed, and I had to protect the trains. So I've done what I can that, if the bed hits it, the trains are protected. This is really strongly built. I'll make it nicer, but to be honest, to be brutally honest, this tunnel is to protect the trains to get them around the room. Scanning around behind the bed, the trains come out on the other side and come into this very narrow yard. My son is 7 and he's helped me a ton with this layout. We like long yards, and that's one of the nice things about Unitrack is, we could snap it down and see what we liked, and then, there was a section we didn't like and we tore it up and made a really long yard. So that's what we wound up doing. Now, I'm not running any trains right now just because of the noise. I want you to be able to hear me. But I can assure you trains run, and they run reliably well. Since we're Nrail people, since we're T-Track people, I hope everyone can appreciate this double crossover here I made out of number 6 Kato turnouts. You have to be pretty tough and know what you're doing, but I cut the turnouts to make the 33mm spacing, and it gives a really nice double crossover that works nicely. I'll take this time to mention that all of the turnouts on the main line have stationary decoders. All the turnouts can be flipped via your throttle. We found we really don't do that. We just throw them by hand. And here we come to the bridge that is at the doorway. And I kind of, stole ideas again from T-Track, whereas, this length of bridge is really determined by the length of track on top. And again, we see the slider pieces, and let's see if I can do this one-handed. But with the correct tools and 2 hands, I can pop these sliders apart and pull the bridge out. And in fact, on the unijoiners themselves, I've clipped the ears off of the respective release point of the unijoiner so that it's even easier to do, but it still holds its track gauge. Next, I'll talk about what powers all these wonderful trains. I use the ESU system with its ESU throttle. So to power all this, first of all, everything's on a smart plug, and you can see the physical switch back here. I can turn it on with that physical switch, or I can just walk in with my cell phone and say, "Hey Siri, turn on the train layout." So back to the ESU system. The ESU system powers the layout with its ESU throttle on its proprietary Wi-Fi signal, but also I have a Raspberry Pi running JMRI, and that also puts out a Y throttle signal as well, so I can use TCS throttles or cell phones or any Wi-Fi throttle that works with JMRI. Track power leaves the ESU system and heads out over here through first our amp meter, and then is split back to these PSX circuit breakers. These are wonderful devices. I have it set that it gives me an audible alarm and an LED indication if there is a short on the system. Next, it goes to this magic box here. This box inside has two HO decoders, one addressed to 12 and one addressed to 11. If I want to run DCC trains, the track signal comes in, goes through, passes through this switch, and heads right out pretty much untouched. But if I want to run the DC trains, which my son calls the old trains, these are trains that don't have decoders or may never have decoders, what happens is the HO decoder in here, when I flip this switch, electricity is routed to the HO decoder inside, and then using the orange and gray wires, I use those wires to feed the layout. What this allows me to do is have a DC train on the tracks, but still control it with the throttles I already have, such as this TCS throttle. So it's kind of a neat feature to kind of give my layout a little bit of versatility. You can also notice that these plugs on here are the T-Track plugs. I can take this box out and go to a train show and use it if I wanted to. The track bus is 16 gauge going out. I know I'm a heretic, but I did it anyway. And the track bus then splits and goes around the train room. Throughout the train room, there are tridents. Here's a yellow one. There's also a red one in there with it. And what those do is allows me to plug in my T-Track modules into it to give them track power. So there's more around the room that allow me to power my modules. Again, as far as throttles, the part that I really like about model railroading is I geek out. I geek out with how we interact with our trains, and that's a big gap to fill, but I enjoy that. So what we do is we have the ESU throttle that we really like for sound locomotives. The TCS throttle is another wonderful device, but then we also use cell phones. We use cheap Android phones running Engine Driver. These things are like $25, $30 on Amazon, a $5 case, a $3 lanyard, and you're set. You have a good throttle to run multiple trains on a layout. And then we secure them here with just the clips that you might see that people use in their car to hold their cell phones. We use those as stands. And last but not least, video of trains running. That is how we keep our credibility here in this hobby. So right now we have 3 trains running around the room. That locomotive over there is one of the new Atlas Jeep 38s with sound. It's beautiful. Here we have a 4-unit, 6-axle latch-up carrying a BN freight train. The Pioneer Zephyr sits awaiting, and trains are running. Thanks for visiting. A couple things as some parting notes is when it comes to T-Track, a lot of people believe Unitrack is bulletproof, and that's just not the case. You really have to pay attention to your track laying and how it's sitting, and really inspect the track before you install it. Even with new track, there's problems. So you have to be real careful. A couple other things, like I mentioned, I really get into how we interact with our trains, that space between you and the train. And when you're selecting a DCC system, think about not only how the throttle feels and in your hand and how it operates, but also look at the trajectory of that company. Are they stuck in a way of doing things they always have? Have they kind of worked themselves into their own little ecosystem, or do they branch out and work with other throttle systems and JMORI, and what's their computer interface technology look like? So that's just some things to kind of investigate if you're getting into DCC for the first time. As in general in model railroading, you want to find a group of friends that are in model railroading with you but have different specialties. I like DCC, but I have a friend that helps me with painting. I have another buddy that helps me with 3D printing. So you really want to have a good kind of group of people around you that can help you enjoy your hobby, and more importantly, you can help them enjoy the hobby. And lastly, if you can get kids involved, it will help you immensely. Kids are a great source for creativity and ideas. And whether it's your own child or a grandkid, get them to help you with your layout. You win because you get some creativity that comes from the minds of kids, but also they're spending time with you and they're having fun. Again, thanks for stopping by.